The first time my daughter told me that her new friend hated parents, I laughed it off. But I think that was the last normal moment our family ever had. 3 weeks later, I woke up at 3:17 in the morning and found her standing beside my bed, smiling in the dark while clutching a filthy, one-eyed teddy bear against her chest. Then she whispered, "Creasy says parents only make children unhappy." My name is Daniel Mercer. 3 years ago, my wife, Emily, our 8-year-old daughter, Lily, and I moved into my grandfather's abandoned house in rural Montana. I hadn't inherited the place because of good fortune. I moved there because I was broke. After losing my job, our savings vanished, debt swallowed everything we owned, and the bank was preparing to take our apartment. The old family house was the only place left where we could live without paying rent. At the time, it felt like a second chance. I would eventually learn it was a trap. The property sat alone at the edge of endless woods. The nearest neighbor lived miles away. The house itself looked exhausted, as if it had been waiting decades for someone to return. Even stranger was the silence. There were trees everywhere, yet no birds sang, no insects buzzed, no animals crossed the yard. Every morning I stepped outside expecting the sounds of nature and found nothing but an unnatural stillness. Emily noticed it too, but we ignored the feeling. We needed the house, and desperate people are good at ignoring warnings. A month after moving in, Lily decided to help clean the overgrown backyard. Near sunset, I heard her shout excitedly. I walked over expecting her to have found an old coin or buried tool. Instead, she was kneeling beside a patch of freshly dug earth, holding a stuffed teddy bear. The thing looked ancient. Its fur was stained brown and gray from years underground. One button eye was missing completely, leaving behind a dark, empty socket. The remaining eye stared upward from a cracked face covered in dirt and mold. The moment I saw it, something deep inside me recoiled. I wanted that toy gone immediately. Lily adored it. She hugged the bear tightly and announced that its name was Creasy. Neither Emily nor I had ever heard that name before. When we asked where she got it, she simply shrugged and said, "That's what he told me." We laughed nervously and assumed she was pretending. That night, after she went to sleep, I threw the bear into a trash bag and left it outside. The next morning it was sitting on Lily's pillow. Emily thought I had brought it back inside. I thought she had done it. Neither of us had touched it. Over the following days, Lily became inseparable from Creasy. She carried him everywhere. At dinner, he sat beside her plate. During television time, he rested on her lap. At night, she tucked him into bed beside her. Eventually, she began talking to him. That wasn't unusual for a child. What bothered me was the way she paused after speaking, as though listening to replies. More than once, I stood outside her bedroom and heard a conversation taking place. One voice belonged to Lily. The other was silence. Yet she responded to that silence as if someone was truly there. Then the first terrifying incident happened 2 weeks later. I woke up middle of the night and heard movement in the hallway. Thinking someone had broken into the house, I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside my bedroom. What I saw nearly stopped my heart. Lily was crawling down the hallway on her hands and feet, not like a child playing a game, like an animal. She moved with disturbing speed, her head twitching as she scurried across the floorboards. When I called her name, she froze. Slowly, she turned her head toward me. For several seconds, she simply stared. Then confusion spread across her face. She stood up and asked why I was awake. It was as if she had no memory of what she had been doing. After that, the changes accelerated. Emily found Lily scratching deep grooves into the wallpaper with her fingernails. We heard growling sounds coming from her bedroom while she slept. Her teachers reported sudden aggression at school. Then the drawings began. Every drawing showed the same scene. A little girl standing beside a teddy bear. Beneath them lay two adults buried underground. The adults always had X's over their faces. The girl was always smiling. The bear always stood beside her, watching. Soon after, Creasy began speaking through her. At least, that was the only explanation I could find. During dinner, she would suddenly stop eating and stare at us. Then hateful words would emerge from her mouth. Parents only ruin children. Children don't belong to their mothers and fathers. You'll both be gone soon. Each time she appeared shocked after saying these things. She apologized repeatedly and insisted she didn't mean them. But the statements became darker and more frequent. It felt like something was testing boundaries, growing stronger with every passing day. The moment that truly broke us happened at 3:17 in the morning. I opened my eyes and found Lily standing beside our bed. She wasn't blinking. She wasn't moving. She simply smiled while holding Creasy. The room felt impossibly cold. Then she spoke in a voice that sounded lower than her own. Creasy says parents always ruin everything. When I switched on the bedside lamp, she blinked and looked around in confusion. She had no idea why she was standing there. Emily began crying. I knew we needed help. The nearest church was 30 miles away. We met with an elderly priest named Father Warren. I expected skepticism. Instead, he listened carefully. When I showed him a photograph of the bear, his face drained of color. He asked where Lily had found it. After hearing it had been buried in the backyard, he became visibly disturbed. He explained that certain objects can become vessels for hatred, grief, and darker things that refuse to die. According to him, Creasy wasn't merely haunted. It was a doorway. Something on the other side was slowly consuming our daughter. The only chance of saving her was to destroy the toy. We tried everything. I drove 20 miles into the woods and threw Creasy into a ravine. The next morning, he sat on Lily's bed. Emily buried him beneath a slab of concrete. Hours later, we found him resting in the hallway. I attacked the toy with a knife and somehow drove the blade through my own palm when my hand slipped. Every attempt ended with blood. It was as though the bear refused to be harmed. Meanwhile, Lily continued to deteriorate. She slept less. Her eyes seemed darker. Sometimes we caught her staring silently at empty corners of rooms for hours. One evening I found her standing in the backyard at dusk, facing the exact patch of ground where Creasy had been discovered. She didn't respond when I called her name. Only when I physically touched her shoulder did she snap out of the trance. As we walked back toward the house, she quietly said, "He was lonely down there. He waited a long time for me." Those words haunted me for weeks. Father Warren eventually gave us one final option: fire. He warned us it might sever the connection between the entity and its vessel. It was risky, but we had no alternatives left. One cold night, after Lily finally fell asleep, Emily and I carried Creasy to the backyard. We stood directly over the patch of earth where Lily had first unearthed him. I drenched the toy in gasoline. Even then, that single button eye seemed to watch us. Emily struck a match. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she dropped it. Flames engulfed the bear instantly. At that exact moment, a scream erupted from inside the house. It wasn't the scream of an adult. It was Lily. Emily and I ran toward the house, but her bedroom was empty. The window stood open. Curtains fluttered in the darkness. Then another scream echoed across the property. This one came from outside, from the backyard. We turned and ran back toward the fire. The flames were dying when we reached the spot. The teddy bear was gone. In its place lay a small, burned body. Emily reached it first and collapsed. I already knew what I would find. Somehow, impossibly, Lily was lying exactly where Creasy had originally been buried. Her body was horribly burned. Her hands were clenched against her chest. Sewn between her blackened fingers was a single button eye. The same eye that had belonged to Creasy. The police called it a tragic accident. They couldn't explain how Lily got outside. They couldn't explain the burns. They couldn't explain anything. Father Warren never returned to our property. Emily and I barely survived the following months. Eventually she left. Grief hollowed out everything we once were. Some losses are too large for a marriage to carry. I still live in that house because I have nowhere else to go. Some nights I hear footsteps circling the property. Other nights I wake and see a small figure standing near the backyard. It always disappears when I look directly at it. The worst nights are when the moon is full. That's when I can see a shape sitting on the patch of earth beyond my window. A filthy teddy bear with one missing eye, waiting patiently, watching the house, watching me. And every time I see it, I have the same horrifying thought. Creasy was never buried there. Something else was. Thanks for sipping tonight's tale with Haunted Brew. Don't forget to subscribe and sleep tight if you still can.